This is a story of how I overcame social anxiety and the lessons that you can take away that might help you if you do have social anxiety or low confidence and this overall frustration with how other people treat you. When I was 8 years old, I came to Australia for the first time and I didn't know a speck of English. And for the first 3 months, I literally remember I had this Mongolian TV show that I really wanted to watch. And my uncle said, okay, write me a 200-word essay on why you want to watch it. And what I wrote on that piece of paper was I want, to watch the show. That's literally what it said on this big piece of A4 paper landscape. And he just looked at that paper with like almost a disbelief. And that's where I started. That's the English level I started at. And you can imagine cultures also are learned as well. So that was also the level of cultural understanding, social understanding that I had of Australia. And so when I first came to school, besides, some kids and some teachers who were nice to me because I was learning English, a lot of kids and a lot of students thought that I was really weird. I'd pick my nose and eat it, or I'd sing out in public, which I didn't know were wrong things. No one told me. I didn't have a father to tell me these things, and my mother exactly wasn't the biggest influence in my life. And so I had no one. No one except the TV shows I was watching, like Adventure Time and Steven Universe, and those didn't really tell you life lessons. And so I had to learn these by myself. And what this built from a really young age was this social anxiety where I didn't really know what was right, and the only time I knew was when I was wrong. And all it really encouraged me to do was shy away from social interactions, shy away from these things, because I was a very open kid. I used to laugh and have fun, and I didn't care about anything else except just, being me. So I remember, I think it was sixth grade, a few years later, and I moved from my primary school to a different one. And I actually had a friend at the old primary school called Alan, who was a really good friend of mine. But that's what I thought, like a kid who was actually nice to me and would hang out. And I thought, yeah, that we were best friends. But that wasn't really the case, because I remember year six, I was hanging out with Alan and this other guy. And at a certain point, he just turns around and asks me to wait outside of his friend's place. Like they go in and they like do whatever, and I'm like waiting outside. And beforehand, he told me, we're not going to be friends forever, right? And at that moment, something just like switched in me, and I was like, damn. And so I was sitting on this bus stop, and what I decided at that moment was to change, really. And for the next few years, for the next like 4 or 5 years throughout high school, that's what I was aiming for, to change, to become better. And I realized at a certain point, in the realization that I came to was that no one really cares about you. Really, no one cares about you. And after high school, you'll understand also that no one's actually there to save you from the financial struggles or your dream path. No one is going to guide you to that dream path. You have to do it yourself. It sounds really hopeless. It sounds really sucky. But the thing is, it's actually empowering, because you understand that no one else but yourself will save you. So you have power in that situation. It's empowering. And I learned that from a young age, to understand that it was only me. So I wasn't being raised by my parents. I was being raised by the internet and me. I was raising myself. And so it took a lot of time, and you can understand it was almost emotionally stunting. So as I understood that no one really cares about you, in the sense that no one really thinks about the things that you do, the social interactions that you're in high school or class or in the bus, no one actually cares. You might have a moment or two of embarrassment. You might have people staring at you, laughing at you, but it's only for that moment. If you think about yourself, how much of it is really concerned with like what other people do? Most of it's just about yourself, right? Most of it's about what you're doing, how you look, what other people think of you. But the problem is, You're not alone. Every other person thinks the same thing, but people think that 80% of what other people think are about them because everyone's self-centered. Everyone thinks the world revolves around them. And so what happens is that everyone thinks that every single action that they do is being judged upon. And it's true. That's true. But only for 2 seconds. But why would you let 2 seconds of a side eye or a laughter or some sort of judgment from someone you don't even really care about? From someone, if you were in a hard situation, wouldn't even help you, wouldn't even care. If your mom died, maybe they'd be like sad for a little bit and be like, oh, are you okay? But they're not gonna be there. They're not gonna care in the long run. After that interaction, they're just gonna go back to whatever they were doing, whatever life they were living, whatever thoughts they had about it, what other people thought of them, and that's it. Everyone is selfish. It's a really cynical thing, but it actually helps you. Because when you understand this, your mind understands it, but then you have to make your body understand it. And that's what I had to go through. I first understood that no one really cares and no one really thinks about you outside of like an arm's length away. Everything else is a blur. Genuinely think about it. Outside of your room, outside of where you are right now, what you're focusing on, do you really, really care or even know what is there? It's almost like reality doesn't exist outside of like a 2 meter bubble we're in. And that's what it's like for everyone. And everyone is like the main character of their own story, and you're just a side character. And my question for you is, why would you waste your whole night worrying, thinking about trying to be normal, trying to fit in, trying to, I'll have this conversation, I'll watch this charisma on command video and learn these conversation starters so that they actually like me, so they actually talk to me. And it's like, what are you doing? They don't care. And the problem is when you do this and you care so much about these conversations and you try to have the most wonderful conversations and you're trying so much for all of these other people, they instantly put themselves above you and the cycle continues. They still think they're better than you. They still think that it's this whole thing where you have to initiate the conversations. You have to initiate these things and you have to initiate the hangouts. You have to initiate everything. And you'll understand, even with some of your friends, that if you don't initiate things, if you don't play the same games with them, they're not going to invite you. Man, I remember the friend group I had. It was like the Discord friend buddies who used to play the same games, right? And we used to sit in this spot called the trees area, and it made a lot of sense. We weren't the cool kids. We weren't exactly the weird kids. The weird kid were like 2 kids. So in a very real sense, we were the weird kids playing games, T-posing in like public, like singing random meme songs and vines. And that was my literal friend group. And that is what I thought was normal because it was fun, right? Because for once in your life, no one really judged you and you were all like weird together. But then you realize that you're not really friends, you're just in the same position. And that when you try and like do something that's outside of it, that actually helps you, that's actually there for self-improvement, like you want to go to the gym, you want to stop playing games, you want to meditate, and you want to actually improve your mental health, you want to start asking out girls, you want to start dating, they don't want to do the same things. And they almost like exclude you from the games and all these things. And that's the thing. I found that when you understand that no one really cares about you, no one really like thinks about you as much as you think. If a person, right, in the worst day of your life, if the person that you're thinking of doesn't really care outside of like a minute window, why should you care about their opinions about anything else? If they're not going to be there for you, right? Why would you want to think about their praises? Why would you want to think about their judgment? Because none of it matters. Like, I found that so empowering, just letting go of the fact that no one actually cares. And it's just this conditioning that we've had from kids. I remember Kanye West talking about coffee tables and this idea of, a little kid thinks he's Superman and he climbs up on a coffee table and it literally empowers him and it makes him a superhero until his dad comes in the room and yells at him for standing on a coffee table. And all of a sudden, this thing that made this kid a superhero, this thing that made the kid this powerful being that was on top of the world was now a coffee table. And so we have so many objects in our lives, coffee tables in our lives that build up that we don't even understand why. And it just creates this wall of coffee tables around us that restrict us from doing anything. Like, you want to ask out that cute girl that you saw, but you can't because you think the people are going to judge you. The girl's going to reject you. But here's the thing. Who cares if the girl rejects you? Who cares if other people judge you? Because here's the thing. The likelihood of failure may be high, but the genuine joy that you'll feel from the successes will be exponentially better than whatever embarrassment that you'll feel in the moment from the girl rejecting you, from the girl maybe thinking you're a little weird. But the only reason why they think you're weird is because you're thinking about it in your head. You're overthinking. That is why other people think like this idea that you have to come to them. You have to initiate conversations with them because you're constantly thinking about how to appeal to them, how to be validated by them. And what really happens is you manifest what you think about. You manifest it into reality, and the posture you hold is what you get in life. And, understanding this, understanding that no one really cared, was a really big step for me. And what I really needed to do was put into actionable steps so my body learned, not just my mind and the thoughts that I had, but my whole body learned that that was the case, that I wasn't going to die if I did something out of the blue, that it isn't normal in public. So I remember in year 11 and year 12, that is really when it came out. And all of these things that I would do in the mornings, like I would just scream. I would literally just scream at the top of my lungs while walking to school. Not like a girly scream, but just like a scream. As loud as I could. In order to break away from this like tight chest that I felt whenever I thought of any sort of situation where I had to interact with anyone. Because first of all, even when I did interact with them, they were all in these scenarios where they always judged me. And I thought that I had to do better, that I had to have better conversations, that I had to be this person that could get validation, but that wasn't the case. And what truly broke me free was this understanding and also the action to back it up. So I did things that I wouldn't do, just with a little push. And so that's what I did. I remember once jumping into the river, right? I used to catch the ferry to school and I just jumped in. With my school uniform on, my shoes, I put down my bag, and at that moment I thought, I'm going to jump in. And it was a truly beautiful experience. And I think that was the first steps of me actually letting go of what other people thought of me. And here's the thing. If you were from a young age extremely bent on being the greatest, thinking that you were going to be rich, thinking that you were going to accomplish great things, you were going to be weird to begin with. Like, being weird means you're going to be out of the normal, and that's what you envision from a young age. And so you've manifested what you've always thought of. It just so happens you haven't understood the actions needed to actually get there. And so you're still this baby, you're still this child that just believes they're weird without any of the benefits of being weird, which is ultimate success, ultimate freedom. Financial freedom, physical freedom, in the sense that you look good, you feel strong. I found that understanding letting go of it all is what really cures social anxiety. Understanding that the anxiety is coming from the judgment, and that doesn't really matter. The judgment doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And how you reinforce this is through actions in your life that you wouldn't usually do. Like just going into a cafe and doing push-ups, or just lying on the ground. And that's how I broke free. That's how I learned this ability to let go of other people's opinions about myself. Because just thinking about it isn't good enough. It really isn't. Because people tell you that you shouldn't care about other people's opinion. Oh, you should not give a fuck. But that's not how it works. If you actually want to do that, you would have, but that's not how it works. Here's the thing. So many people are one decision away from truly changing their life, truly changing it, but they can't. They have the thought, but they can't make their whole body move in unison. They can't let the butterflies fly in unison, in rhythm. That's how I see it. You'll always have the anxiety. It depends on on how you use it. It came from this really small thought where I thought I shouldn't really give a care about other people. And then saying, fuck it, let's actually put it into action. So I started doing it in my public social life, trying to tell myself more than anyone else that I shouldn't fucking care. So I would yell out in public, not in public like on the street, like in the city. I'm talking about like suburban. You're walking to school, you're walking somewhere, and there aren't many people. That's when you do it. And when you do that, when you risk acting like you're insane, you start doing things for yourself and you become more selfish. You become a person who wants your own validation. That's what you're doing. This is all self-love, to be very honest, because all this time you've been trying to get love from everywhere else, from everyone else, and it hasn't worked. And all they've given you is judgment, and all you've gotten in return was fear and anxiety. And what I really found powerful, man, what I really found powerful was understanding that fact, understanding that number one, no one really cared. And number two, from that, getting a lot of power from discovering myself more than anything and loving myself. And so I would do things for myself, specifically for myself, and be selfish about it. And look, I still have trouble with it. I can't tell you how many times I try to cook like 8 eggs and not do it because I would think, my dad would say something. But I'm slowly overcoming that. And how you do that is by giving validation to yourself and giving proof of your own identity. And if you want to talk to the girl, talk to the girl. If you want to get a tip on how you'd start, and how I started was I literally asked for the time. Hey, do you know what time it is? And then if I saw something that I recognized, if I saw something that I liked, like what clothes she was wearing, maybe it was a school uniform, relax, I was in school as well, I would talk about that. And, I would then start from there and I would slowly build up. And this really helped. And that's how I overcame social anxiety. It's by understanding that I shouldn't give a fuck about social interactions. People will only actually start centering around you. People will only start liking you when you like yourself. When you're trying to get this validation from everyone else, you're trying to like yourself by making other people like you, you're never going to let anything happen. Because why should other people like you when you don't even like yourself? Why should other people give you validation when you haven't given your own self-validation through the actions that you want to do? When you can't even do the things you want to do and you're paralyzed by fear, why should other people like you, right? And so it became a really long process of just giving validation to myself and loving myself and being authentic to my true self. And that's when people started to like me. That's when I found friends. That's when I found people who I could really talk to. That didn't mean there still weren't people that didn't like me. That didn't mean there were still people, who wouldn't just spread rumors or anything else, because that's what you have to understand. When you are an irregular, extraordinary person, that is what you trade it for. Because you can have this normal life. You can have this normal friend group. And you can have this normal validation, but in return, you also risk being normal and mediocre. So I hope this video helped, and I hope to see you guys next time.